everything, I guess, to try to do it and make it in Hawaii.
Stay. Just try to stay. Try to not give it up. I mean, I don't want to get emotional talking about it, but yeah, I mean, even me, I'm renting a place, $1,900. I'm a state senator, $72,000 a year. At the end of the day, I don't buy anything aside from food and bills. And I'm, that's it. That's all I have. At the end of the day, I'm at zero. So from paycheck to paycheck. So I'm here trying to lead and trying to do it and trying to stay. Please do the same.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Home Keys Hawaii podcast. We're so grateful for the opportunity we have to meet with Senator Awa to talk a little bit about the housing situation on Oahu, talk a little bit more about locals, and maybe give you guys some tips and tricks of hopefully how to make it here on Oahu, in Hawaii in general. So, Senator, thank you for having us.
Thanks
really
for coming.
Appreciate your
Thanks
time.
for being here.
Of course. I'm super excited to talk about you. I love what you're doing on social media, on Instagram, kind of bringing light to kind of what's happening here in the Capitol, in the Senate, kind of pulling back the curtain, which kind of what I want to talk about in a little bit. But
we want to do a lot more.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it here.
Sounds good. So before we get into some of the issues, if you don't mind, maybe giving a little introduction about yourself, how you got into politics, and then your background. That'd be great.
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in Ka'ava, moved to Kahalu'u, graduated from Kahuku High School. I was a wrestler. Hawaiian, obviously, big family.
Yeah.
Got into the news after college wrestling. Eventually made it all the way to the top. News anchor from intern. The typical story, just work, grind, and you get what you put in. That's my story. When I came out of the news, a lot of people know this story, but basically I left because they wanted me to read misinformation. Wasn't good with that. So many things happened after that, and I was just blessed to be put in a situation of adversity that led to this where we are today, because we're making a difference in our community. Like I've never been able to do.
So I was going to say, so what after everything happened with the news and all that came out, what specifically motivated you to get into politics, to run for Senate?
I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd been in situations like this before, moving from one station to another, 6-month hiatus and whatnot. So I knew about doors and openings and that. And so I was just looking, like, what door? I was trying to be patient. What door is going to open? And nothing was really opening except what I did have was time, because nothing was happening. I had time. And so in that time, well, what's my passion? What can I do? And I'm a journalist. So I started doing stories in my community for free.
Yep.
And that was a big difference. If any reporters out there, they want to, hey, how do I level up? When you start reporting for free and you get up in the morning and you're like, what story am I going to do today?
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid for this.
No hidden agenda. No.
It's different. It's different. And so I started doing stories like that. And the first story maybe not the first story, but one of the stories we did was related to housing. Typical story that's been happening for generations is somebody was trying to buy 52 acres of land, or they bought 52 acres of land in a Huimanu, preservation land, and was trying to rezone part of it to build market value homes.
Crazy.
Yeah. And they bought it for $299,000.
Wow.
So the gain that they could make by getting a rezone at the city council is
huge.
Yes.
Yeah. 10x, 15x.
And we know what that does to the rest of the houses.
Sure.
Property taxes go up, as we've seen. Rents go up. And so that's what the community was battling. I did that story. The person to this day still hasn't come back to the board.
Wow.
I did it off of a Kahalu'u neighborhood board meeting. This guy came in 11 o'clock after the recording was POW. So nobody's going to see it unless, you're one of the 20-something people who were on this Zoom board meeting. And so that was really the story that really kicked it off. It was like, I was just like, wow, how is this happening?
Sure.
Nobody's going to know about it. The news is not here. Other than these people that are seeing it, so I did that story, and that's where it took off.
Got it. So that's what I love about your story and your background into politics, right? Because you're not a career politician.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, my votes, Some in here, they'll fall in line. There's good people in here, but a lot of people in here, they'll fall in line and they'll vote accordingly to how they're supposed to. Just yesterday, matter of fact, there was a senator who looked over at me and they had mentioned, "Hey, vote your conscience on this one." Because other ones maybe you don't, but they looked at me and they're like, "Brenton always votes his conscience."
Yeah.
Because you look at the amount of no votes that I put up versus anybody else, it's astronomical. And it's not because I'm just voting no with no. There's reason behind all of them.
Sure.
It's just like I said in my speech on the floor the other day, it's people that I represent. They just believe that government's not going the direction they want.
Which is kind of like what I was saying. I think your background in journalism and storytelling is, at least for me and a lot of people like me, it's been enlightening to find out what's happening here in the capital, right? Like we were talking about before we started filming, I think the typical local person in Hawaii doesn't really realize the power that a lot of these politicians have in terms of guiding our state in a certain agenda or pushing our state in a certain way. And so your journalism, your storytelling, and kind of pulling back the curtain on how bills are passed, what's happening, what's voted yes or no in the Senate is really eye-opening.
I wish I was better. Because there's so much, they say there's this saying when you come into the Senate, just being a senator, I'm trying to be a journalist senator, but just being a senator, you're drinking water out of a fire hose.
Sure, yeah.
Right? There's so much coming at you. And so there's so much that I would like people to see, but I'm not, as skilled as I am, I'm not skilled to the point where I can just do everything.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that you can ever do that.
No, you're doing a good job. Appreciate it. I know a lot of locals appreciate what's happening, or at least the content you're putting out and the awareness you're bringing. So anyway, I mean, like I said, the main reason I kind of wanted to get in front of you and talk to you was to kind of get your stance now that you've been in Senate for, how long has it been now?
Since mid-November.
Okay, so a couple months. So you've kind of been, you've seen at least one full cycle of.
It's felt like 2 years.
I bet. So now that you've had a little experience with bills and what happens, and seeing people's agendas getting pushed one way or the other, I wanted to talk about specifically housing here in Hawaii. Right, as a realtor, I deal with the retail side. And I see the struggles family face in terms of trying to make it and buying a home. And so I'm kind of interested to see your point of view. As a politician now, as a senator, what your view is in terms of the current housing market in Hawaii and what we can, I guess, prepare for looking forward.
So the one term you'll hear obviously continuing every day is affordable housing. I continue to see affordable housing bills, but as we all know, and the criticisms there is, what is affordable?
Sure.
It's just a term. It's a term already. To me, as you know, it doesn't make sense. I don't want to sign on to anything. I know the governor's, pushing housing and people want housing, but at what cost? If 100% of what we're building is not going to the people that live here, then we're leaking. It's like if we're a body and we're trying to do surgery, an artery's leaking, but we're doing other things. We can't do other things if we're not stopping the bleeding. And the bleeding in this case, to me, is the number of people that come in and take up the homes here. Because as we've seen, Hawaiians are the minority in our own state. That is, to me, is mind-boggling.
Yeah. I mean, I think people don't realize the impact of outside people coming in and buying, and the pressure that puts on locals. At least I don't think they realized it before, but now people see. But I think we're now at a point where it's too late.
Well, I don't think so.
Okay.
We see it, but not everybody. There are people who still will say that they'll deny that the outside influence is that influential. They'll deny it, but it cannot be denied when I'm walking the streets of Kahuku and it doesn't look like it did 15 years ago.
Sure.
And the faces aren't the same.
Yeah.
And the teachers in the schools are complaining about cultural issues between students. And that can all be sorted out, but it changes the fabric of our communities. And so there's no denying that it's happening. So, for people who, there's some people, influential people, who still believe that that's not a problem. But I see it in countless bills that indirectly bring outsiders in. And the reason being is some of these senators and representatives think that, we need help here for certain things. Without going into specifics, we need help here, so we need to rely on others to come in Well, no. We got talent here.
Yeah.
Help us.
So going back to the bills,
Sorry.
I guess. No, yeah, no.
Plenty stuff to
love
talk
it. Yeah. So going back to, I guess, the bills. I know recently it gained some traction on social media with Bill 30 or SB 34.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what the objective or intention was of that, and then kind of the fallout or what happened with that?
In short, prevent non-residents from buying our homes here. That was the goal. And right away, you'll hear people say, "This guy's crazy. That's unconstitutional." But then you hear a lot of us who are like, "Oh, it's about time," and that was the bill's name. And that bill surprisingly had support here by some of my colleagues, and it got a hearing. And so that was the first hurdle. It actually got a hearing, and so the public got to testify. All that, I was able to put it on social media. People, we had a lot of people who supported it. The problem in this case was the Department of Taxation ended up saying that, hey, this is most likely unconstitutional. Attorney Generals agreed. So that essentially killed the bill. I don't know how much detail you want into what happened with it.
Whatever you want to share. We're open.
So it died, but we revived it because the chair of the Judiciary Committee liked what we were trying to do. He likes it, but we got to do it legally. The problem here in the state of Hawaii is not, we can introduce these bills, but if we can't have an attorney general, it's so key that the attorney general supports preventing non-residents from buying, because right now they don't.
Sure.
And if the attorney general doesn't, they're going to say, we oppose SB 34 every single day. And if the attorney general is opposing the bill, the senators won't pass it. And the reason for that is because the attorney general's job is to make sure, part of their job is to make sure the state isn't getting sued and losing these lawsuits.
I see.
And so they don't want to sign on to an unconstitutional bill. There's a lawsuit from it, and the state ends up having to fork over a lot of money. So they're trying to do their job. The problem is they sign on to other bills that are unconstitutional. They've been sued and they've lost. So they take chances on other unconstitutional bills, but not this one.
So they have a lot of power.
Oh, attorney generals have a lot of power.
Yeah.
Yep.
So going back to that, because I know there's been other precedents in other countries, right? With like New Zealand. I think Canada recently passed a law where that pretty much stated that you needed to be a resident of that country in order to own property. I think, and so I hear some people, they say, well, why can't we do that here in Hawaii?
Yep.
And when you say unconstitutional, I may be wrong, you can correct me, but from my understanding, the reason why we can't do something like that, or at least the excuses they give us of why we can't do that, is because home buying is federally protected.
Yes.
With the Fair Housing Act. And
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know it on the head. So you can't treat non-residents any different from residents. It's not like college tuition. Some people are like, hey, how come UH can do in-state, out-state, right? Hey, if we could do that, we could solve it. But when it comes to the market, you can't, according to the Attorney General, the Department of Tax, you can't do that. Like I said, though, there are ways, and we, after that bill initially died, we had to go roundabout way to try to do the same thing. And it had a little more progress. It went a little more before eventually dying, but it was really watered down. My belief is what we really need is it has to be from the top.
Okay.
The governor. We've seen during the pandemic, they shut down a state.
Sure. Yeah.
They shut down a state. Do we ever think that could happen?
No. Yeah.
We need somebody who has political will that will do this. It can be done. I don't care what the naysayers say. If there's a will, there's a way. There are other states that are banning, I believe, China from buying agricultural lands. That should already happen. And we should have been the leader in that. Yeah,
sure.
You know? In Kaneohe Bakery, they went out of business during the pandemic.
Okay.
Kaneohe Bakery been around forever. They went out of business during the pandemic. They were having some business trouble. I'm sure the pandemic didn't help. Guess what's there now? A China construction company.
No way. Wow.
So who are we looking out for?
Yeah. So I guess from your perspective, so you mentioned that from the top there needs to be someone forward thinking, someone that really has the heart of the people as their main priority. But I guess as local families, right? Because we know how hard it is to make it in Hawaii, and I see it all the time, every day, talking to people about trying to buy a home. Before, right, when I first started making videos and content, it was a lot easier because then I would say, "This is the information. Go out and buy a house." But now, where the gap is between what we make and our income to what people or what the houses are, it's such a big gap where it's not as easy as, "Okay, this is information. Do it."
It's almost impossible for most.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I'm sure you see that.
Oh, it's crazy, right? Like, because before, yeah, like a year and a half ago, even home prices were high, but still, I think they were attainable, they're reachable. So all I have to do is give them a roadmap and say, "This is the roadmap, and you can get it." Now it's like, yeah, this is the roadmap, but on top of this roadmap, you need to do X, Y, and Z and be blessed in a certain way in order to get to that point. So I guess in your conversations or what you view, what are some things that local families, Native families, what are some things that we can do, or even if there is anything, I guess, to try to do it and make it in Hawaii?
Just try to stay, try to not give it up. I mean, I don't want to get emotional talking about it, but yeah, I mean, even me, I'm renting a place, $1,900. I'm a state senator, $72,000 a year. At the end of the day, I don't buy anything aside from food and bills, and I'm, that's it. That's all I have. At the end of the day, I'm at zero. So from paycheck to paycheck. So I'm here trying to lead and trying to do it and trying to stay. Please do the same.
Yeah. Which is, I save this to the end of the podcast, but I think this is perfect. So I've lost so much family and friends just in the past couple of years of people moving to the mainland simply because they can't make it, or they want a better quality of life, or things are cheaper, and it makes sense. Like when you step back and really look at it as a business point of view, it makes total sense. Like what you can afford here versus what you can afford on the mainland, it's not even on the same planet.
The lifestyle is just, you can get such a bigger property. Sure. You can buy things.
You can actually have things.
Have presents for your kids, but then you leave a place.
So that was my question. Is right. So you in your perspective, right? You say that with your income, this is what you make and this is what you're spending on. So why stay? Why stay in Hawaii when you're barely making it, barely covering your bills? Why not just go to the mainland and enjoy a bigger house? And
you could, in college, I went to Pennsylvania. I could do the cheesesteaks and stuff, but it's not home. Yeah. It's not home. Yeah. This is as far back as we can trace. This is us. This is our place. How can you leave?
Yeah. And I think it's unfortunate you touched upon this in the beginning, but the more we open those doors to foreigners or people coming in that don't have the right mindset, the more our culture is going to get watered down, and the more communities are going to change.
And then you see the representation.
Yeah.
Imagine if more Hawaiians is here. You might have more Hawaiians in here.
Sure, 100%. Because how many Native Hawaiians are in the center right now?
There's a good bit, but there could be a lot more. We're outnumbered. I'll say that we're outnumbered, and especially the ones that think like us.
Yeah,
that's even fewer.
Yeah,
who won't fall in line and just do for their political career or their political future over people. That's even less. That's hard to find.
Yeah,
but yeah, it really comes down to people. If people would just stay, and I don't want to use the term 4-letter word, VOTE, but
sure,
that's what it comes down to. It's like, it's tough. My family never used to vote, but the stuff that happens in here, you don't have a say if you just have people just continuing to push their agenda. And like I was mentioning off camera, sea level rise. The area that I represent, they're saying it's going to be underwater. Why fund that place? Well, lucky I'm here. Because somebody else might say the same. Hey, why fund this place?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, let's get people moving if I wasn't representing this. So, yeah, it makes a difference.
I was going to say, too, I think, so when I say I think, it's just my perspective, right? But growing up, I never really thought, too, that really my vote really made a difference. And that's probably why a lot of people don't vote either, right? It's what is my one little vote going to do in comparison to a state that's historically democratic. No matter what I do, like it's going to be the same status quo that it's been for years.
It can, though. It can. I only won by about 400 votes on the Leeward Coast, and not saying that because Maile Shimbukuro, she's in here as a senator. She's Hawaiian. But there was Samantha DeCorte and she lost by 41 votes, I believe.
Oh wow.
So every vote does count in a lot of these legislative races. You go on the House side, you know, I had a little over 8,000 votes compared to my predecessor who had about 7,600 votes. So we're not talking about, you know, 100,000 votes to be in the state Senate. On the House side, it's less. It's like half of that. So I mean, you can get in with 4,000 votes.
Yeah, yeah.
Your vote matters. You know, there's still 4,000 Hawaiians in some areas. Imagine if they all rallied behind one candidate.
Sure.
They'd be in like that. And you know what else? That candidate wouldn't have to spend all this money. The candidate wouldn't have to take a lot of money. That's what I did. It's just like, forget the money. I got my people.
Yeah.
I got the votes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how we did it. So people can do it. But sorry, that stuff is like, yeah, that was my journey. So
love it, bro. Love it. So aside from housing and how expensive it is here, I mean, what are in your perspective, what are some of the other biggest challenges that you see now that you've been in Senate for local families? Whether you've never noticed it before, or now that you're here, you see it amplified. Like, what are some of the other stuff?
For local families, it's, I guess, you know, you're just focusing on your family and trying to, you know, take care of your family and information. I guess the biggest problem would be getting information to everybody. You would think, hey, Brenton, you got 40,000 followers on social media. Everybody knows when you put it out. There are a lot of people who, there's probably, I would say, more people who don't get the information than do, just in my own community. Because a lot of the elderly, they still like the flyers in the mail.
Sure.
You know, and that's costly. I know I'm getting a little bit off tangent here, but if I were to mail out one flyer to every household in my community, that would be an easy 15, 20 grand. That's cost a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
For one message.
Versus one post on social media. Yeah.
So, you know, going back to the point, if people could get on social media, that's free communication. That would be really helpful. I'm going to put out our end of the legislative session flyer. Okay. I'll send it out and we'll spend that money because it's worth it. We got to let people know. But to me, that's a waste of money. You know, it shouldn't cost that, not in this day and age. So, if people can take the time to plug in and maybe watch a few videos here and there. I know I'm not posting about everything, but like I said, there's a lot more that can be talked about. There's so many bills. We had to build term limits and never got a hearing. We had to build to get the power back in the people. And you know, during the pandemic, there was a lot of parents in my neighborhood who they were concerned with masking and their children and all that stuff. And they never had a voice on the Board of Education. Well, one of the bills that we put out would have made it so that parents or anybody can vote the Board of Education members in. That didn't even get a hearing. Yeah. So many bills have not gotten hearings, whereas so many others, I've seen clones, the same bill 3 times in 3 different ways by 3 different introducers. So, I mean, we're dealing with that over here. And I hope to bring more of that to you. But if I were to take time to write all of this stuff, and I'd never be doing work. Sure. Look at my board here behind the camera. It's full of actions and problems in our neighborhood, just in my neighborhood or community. It's a big one, but there are a lot. Yeah,
going back to that, so there's another bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was another bill you're trying to push, I don't know where it is, but getting financial literacy as a priority, I mean, as a mandatory
It's funny you
curriculum,
bring
right?
that up.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I got right back to financial literacy, but right now, this is the water that we're swimming in. We're over here coming in and we want to push for financial literacy. We want a better education.
Sure.
Guess what's happening right now? I don't know who did it, but somebody over here took out money in the budget for, you know, when like the seniors are transitioning senior year and you want to go take college credits, get an early start, they cut it. They cut the budget. Yeah, so I got emails flooding in from Winter Community College. The chancellor is asking, and I'm pushing for this. Get that thing back in. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, kids use this kids use this everywhere, you know.
Sure.
Even like Waipahu, they're real successful. I know Lelehu was super successful with getting, you know, some kids, I know we've done stories, have graduated high school
and they're
with their associates.
Yeah, crazy.
You know? This is such a good program, and yet they've pulled back the funding. And it's like, you asked about financial literacy, and here we are trying to do something and go upwards direction,
and we're
having to halt because something that we already had is being pulled out from under us.
Crazy.
And so now we're fighting that.
Yeah.
And it's like, gosh, can we ever get to what we want to do when, you know, other things are happening that we have to stop and take care of?
That's crazy, because you would think, right, that the main goal should be to educate and inform as much people as possible.
If it was
And
about
not
the
like-
human race and
Yeah.
bettering the human
Yeah.
race, teachers would be paid probably like
100%.
athletes, you know, because you'd want the best of the best, you know, teaching kids to be the brightest they could get and so on and so forth. But the reality is it doesn't work that way with tax dollars and how governments run and whatnot. You know, it's not a perfect world, but yeah, it's even harder in here when what you think should be common sense and right,
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah.
you can't even make progress on because other things are happening.
That's
And then a lot of that happens here. A lot of the bills that we go through take up our time. That's probably the worst part of being in this. I'm blessed to be here and work for the community and you know, be able to stop some of these bad bills, I call them. But there are so many that it's like there's a lot of things in the process that could change over here and make it more efficient and better. But there are so many bills that just come through, and the amount of time you have that everybody has to go through them and make an actual like good vetted choice is so small. So I'm lucky that I have good staff. They're going through it right now. My day's bills, they're going through it. So and they'll go review with me. But there have been bills like this HB 525. If people want to look that up, maybe give that a look because this thing is being pushed by the top from our leader, our president, I believe, in different states. And this bill, when it came across our desk, I missed it. The first time, the second time, the third time, it crossed over. The House's version crossed here. I missed it a fourth time. I finally understand that bill because others emailed in, hey, this bill would do this. They linked it to another state whose governor is saying, hey, watch out because this bill is going to, you know, this is going to, basically it's about banking and basically your finances, and every move you make will be able to be watched. And so this is not something that, there's no media, there's nobody talking about it, just flying through both sides. Like I said, it's just something that came through right now. And because of some constituents, you know, people in my district that are concerned, they emailed, and now I see it. I'm like, wow, I cannot believe this thing's been flying through. I got to change my vote to a no the next time I see it.
Yeah.
Lucky it's going to be one more time. So there are a lot of that in here. It takes up a lot of time. And so you talk about, getting way far away from financial literacy.
No worries.
Yeah, we want to work on that. We started the process working on that. Ka'ava Elementary School, Waiahole Elementary School, they're on board. We want to get a public-private partnership where we can, because Ka'ava Elementary, they have about 8 or 9 staff that run the whole school. That's it, including the janitor.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like really small. And so we're hoping we can get, you know, some company, I know banks do it, credit unions do it. They can, you know, spare a person a day, or, you know, and we get a private teacher just donating time and teaching kids real basic stuff. Some schools already do it, some teachers already do it, but we want to, you know, make sure that all kids get it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on now. But that's how much effort we go forward, and we're not stepping on the gas on that because we're in here dealing with what we got to do.
So much other stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just bring that up because information is key. So like you said, to get into social media or just get as much information as possible, and that's the whole reason why I got into making videos and content. Because I was thinking there's so much basic knowledge about buying a home ownership that everybody should know, that I just realized not a lot of people know. And if everybody knew from when we were a young age,
if they teach you that, imagine if they taught you, here's how to buy a home, what you need. Here's the age you should start thinking about it. Here's what to do at this age. Yeah, if that was a course in itself. Imagine when we come out. Imagine if we could do our taxes. We could buy a home.
100%, yeah.
We could, we could do all the finances that we need. We could save our money. I know that would mean jobs, but still, like, people should be able to be self-sufficient. 100%. That's how Hawaiians were.
100%.
But we're so, instead, we try to spread everything out to everybody, and then we have to depend on everybody. And then we lost, what we had.
Yeah.
So we need to get all that back.
Love it. Well, anyway, I think we're probably coming up to our time. So if there's anything else you want to share, anything else you want to close up with?
Nah, just, mahalo for you guys being here and, giving me a voice.
Yeah.
Like I said, not everybody knows me. So yeah, it's always appreciative when like-minded people come by and talk.
Love it. So if you don't already know him, which you should, but if you don't, make sure you look up Senator Brenton Awa on Instagram. Where else can they find you?
That's pretty much it. We have a website.
Okay, awesome.
For this capital, you can just look it up, Googling my name. The sites will come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. If you have any questions or anything, reach out to me, reach out to him through his staff or whatever platform you can get to him. Ask him the questions that you need to find answers to. And I promise you, out of everybody else, this guy, he'll reach back. He'll do his best to reach back.
At least the staff. At least the staff will.
You'll hear from somebody, for sure. So thank everyone for tuning in. Like, subscribe, do all the stuff. You guys know what you got to do. And see you next time. Mahalo.
Got it.
Thank you, brother.